All right, welcome to Path Forward. It is Tuesday, March 31st. It is 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Interesting day. I want to start with a couple of admin notes before I get into this. First things first, I posted a vehicle walkthrough where I laid out all the equipment that you could potentially throw in your vehicle. Walkthrough. Just one of my vehicles. I have another one to post. I'll do that tomorrow. I was going to post them both yesterday. I got sidetracked. I still have a couple of coins to send out and a couple of shirts to send out. So I'll get that done tomorrow. I was going to do it today. Again, got sidetracked. Had an AC guy here all day working on my AC units. So it's been interesting. Um, Today, this will be fairly short because there's a lot of stuff brewing right now. But Sunday on the weekly recap of the narratives, I talked through this UFO narrative, and again today, Matt Getz, and I'm not making this up. Matt Getz literally said this on a podcast. I think it was Monday, and I quote: "A representative from the Army came into my office. It was an unclassified briefing with other people from my staff that were there with me, and they briefed us that the U.S. military was using captured aliens and breeding them with humans in a program to create alien hybrids." You can't make that up. You literally can't make that up. And that's 24 hours after the disclosure videos, Anna Paulina Luna, and some of the others are making the rounds on all social media now, because I saw it on Facebook this morning. I saw a bunch of alien stuff on Instagram last week. I've seen streams of it on X for the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And again, it's all the same narrative, right? And last week it was JD Vance saying, "Yep, there's aliens, but I think they're demons. They're interdimensional beings." So if we're breeding with interdimensional demons, I don't see how that works out well. Just saying. But that does explain Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Eric Schmidt, Sergey Brin, and a host of other tech bros and where they came from, especially Zuckerberg. Tell me that dude doesn't look like a hybrid. Come on, tell me. So
does this mean that we can put like 3 or 4 other big conspiracy theories on deck for discussion? Because it legitimizes a whole bunch of other topics that,
dude, sky is the limit at this point. I mean, I saw that today and it stopped me dead in my tracks. I was like, wow, now Matt Getz is talking about it. So,
I mean, you bring this up, you bring up the book of Enoch, you bring up Revelations, you bring up Pole Shift.
Yeah, there's a host of
the flood. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So, it used to be the time between conspiracy theory and reality was 6 months, and now we're getting down into the hours because, first of all, I mean, he says all of that, and then he says, "Well, I can't corroborate any of that, but somebody from the Army came in and briefed us." And I'm thinking to myself, we can't even get Doge cuts ratified and solidified through Congress, but yet we can get a former senator to talk about an alien. I'm like, wow, this has gotten surreal to the point where you have to ask the question, what's the end state they're trying to reach, right? Because like in this, just so we're perfectly clear, this goes along with Sunday. If you didn't listen to the show on Sunday, I recommend you do, because I walk through the narrative building around aliens, and I take it all the way back to Sean David Morton, and the interviews I did with him in 22, and talk about how the storyline was built and how the narratives have been built, right? But I want to take everybody back to the Tucker Carlson Joe Rogan interview, because that is the pivotal point in which we went from conspiracy theory to disclosure. And I say that because, and it's a couple of years old now. I think it's 2 years old. But they're talking before the show. They don't know they're live, right? Which is complete BS, because that's not how the game's played, right? The game's played where they got a light that says, we're on air. And they're being recorded, and they're talking like we're off air, blah, blah, blah. And they're talking about aliens. And this is where Tucker famously says, I've been told by very high levels in the government that these are interdimensional beings. I consider them demons and angels, and I consider them to be fallen angels or demons, but they're interdimensional beings, and they've been here forever. So that was the start of disclosure. That was the pivot point. Ever since then, they have built on the narratives over and over and over. But the latest one, and this is the one that's most important, is that the Vice President of the United States said they're real, they're here, and they're demons. They're interdimensional beings, but I consider them demons. So I don't know, Bruce, I'll let you go because that's a lot to digest.
Well, I don't have a whole lot more to add. I mean, I was going while you were talking, I was looking at the Matt. I guess he was talking with that Benny Johnson guy.
Looks like Benny Johnson. Yeah, that's who it was.
And yeah, it's I mean, it's no surprise to me based on stuff we see all the time flying and things that have been increasing for the last 5-6 years, which could be our tech, could be other tech. It's made me think that, yeah, there's something for sure happening out in space. So
could be BS too. Remember,
yeah.
You always got to consider that this could. I start from the premise that this is BS, so they can wag the dog with some kind of a hologram or Project Bluebeam or some BS like that.
And I have to caveat everything I say. I'm sipping a little bit of Jameson right now because my dad's here, so I might say stupid stuff. But yeah, it seems to me that it's my biggest question is why now?
Yeah,
why now? Why now? I mean, granted, the whole Iran thing is falling apart, and it's just looking like fucking disaster every day, more and more. So maybe it's a good distraction.
I tend to think it's distraction because, and let's go back to the release of those the Tic Tac. Remember the Tic Tac? And all we got to see was the gun tapes from F-18s. You know, guys chasing around, the grainy videos that looks like some orb. That's the level of disclosure we're at, right? If they were serious about this and this was real, they would roll out an alien. Like they would roll one out. Like, this is an alien. This is what they are. Right? I like I said, I start from the premise that everything's BS and work my way backwards from there. And even if there's a grain of truth in there, I keep coming back to exactly where you are. Why now? Why are we seeing this right now? And I've heard
well, everybody would forget about
definitely Epstein.
Aliens.
Yeah, we'll get to Epstein here in a minute because that's the other topic I wanted to talk to you tonight. But I keep coming back to the same thing. And the same thing is, why are they releasing this now? I mean, it's clearly not being driven off planet, right? It's not aliens saying you disclose this now or we'll disclose ourselves. That to me that's a pipe dream, right? Because everything I've ever read about aliens, doesn't matter what it is, says that they have a strict intergalactic rule not to interfere with the population even when asked, right? They're supposed to let us evolve on our own. Okay. So I think it's not being driven off planet. So then you have to look at it in the sense of
we should post that Benny Johnson discussion for everybody to see in case people haven't seen it.
Is that the link you just dropped in?
Yeah, I just dropped it in the studio chat. It was one of them.
How long is it? Is that the 2-minute clip or is that
a minute and a half?
Yeah, I want to get the whole if somebody could post the whole video in the chat, that'd be appreciated. But I just no, sorry, Vikey, my phasers are set to go fuck yourself. I just think that there's just too many things that don't add up, and well, let's switch to Epstein because that ties into this, right? The whole Epstein thing. This week that I saw this new narrative that they're releasing that Trump's in the Epstein files, Iran's releasing the files, and Trump's in the Epstein files. Okay, that's nonsense. And Trump was not the only guy that went to the island. A bunch of people went to the island. Really, really big names, bankers, lawyers. They all went to the island, right? That's that whole Trump narrative. That was just Trump.
Yeah,
that's the
Court
Obama
justices.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of nonsense. But I think this is distraction away from the Epstein stuff. I think it's distraction away from the conflict, which is going badly.
Well, the other thing is, I mean, everything I've seen of Trump lately, he, and podcasts that have discussed this, he's just going downhill, like parabolically downhill. It looks like he's posting all kinds of crazy things, contradicting himself every couple hours. Physically, the videos I've seen of him recently look terrible. It's like there's a campaign being waged, a psyop being waged just against him. I think you've mentioned that.
There is. And here's something else that people need to consider. Again, this goes back to pawns in the game. In pawns in the game, they prop somebody up until they're no longer useful, and then they destroy them publicly. That's what we're watching right now, is the destruction of Trump publicly so that they can replace him. And that I don't get the sense that they've picked a successor yet. I mean, I don't even think it's Vance at this point, but that's what this looks like to me, is that they're building Trump up for the destruction, and they're releasing all this information so that they can remove him from office. And either way that goes, I don't see that working out well for anybody, right? Because the conflict's not going to stop now, right? One of the things about war is that war grows exponentially at its own pace, at its own rate, its own way. No matter what your intent, war just goes its own way. And, you can see Trump's posts over the last week and a half. He's desperate to look for an off-ramp. He wants an off-ramp, right? But, Israel, in all of their infinite stupidity, they're continuing to double down and drop bombs, even though Trump says we're negotiating, we want a way out, blah, blah, blah. We want to end the conflict. We've declared victory. What's he declared victory, like 5 times now? At least 5 times? It's like every morning he gets up and declares victory, and then we still have troops on the ground. So I don't see anything other than the script and pawns in the game right now. I really don't. And this UFO thing to me is just part of that script. It's just a different high-tech distraction for the public to keep people anesthetized away from asking real questions. Because look, let's just take the Epstein stuff at face value. Let's say all of it's real. That means that every government in the Western world is controlled by pedophiles. That means that our government, all the way back to almost World War II, knew about all of the CIA activities, all the illicit activities. And it also means that the CIA is responsible for ISIS and Al Qaeda, whereas Hamas and Hezbollah are Israeli creations. So if that's the case, then it means all of our government is completely corrupt. So to me, this would be a distraction to keep people away from asking questions, to bring all the pieces together, because there's no logical reason for them to disclose that we're in contact with alien races, even though most of us probably knew that years ago. So
what gets me about Epstein is I got to believe the Russians, or maybe even the Chinese, probably have plenty of info on the whole Epstein deal that they could release.
I'm sure they do.
And so why aren't they? Why aren't the Russians? Why aren't, or the Iranians? They could get it from the Russians.
What it comes down to is credibility, right? The information has to come from a credible source in order for the public to buy into it, right? So one of the conversations that we've had on Tommy's podcast where I've done the last, I don't know, 6-7 weeks with General Holt and Colonel
Yeah.
Watkins and EM. One of the points of contention I have with that whole narrative that it's the City of London, MI6 proxies, blah blah blah. It doesn't account for the fact that Epstein was run. He was run by Robert Maxwell, right? Robert Maxwell was his creator, and Robert Maxwell was given a state funeral in Israel, and it's widely believed that Epstein is still alive in Israel. So if that's the case, then that's a Mossad operation, right? That doesn't answer the mail on the interlink between MI6 and Mossad, right? But they all work together, so you can make the assumption. But the point is that it doesn't. The linkages just aren't there to say, yeah, this was a proxy. All of this was run as a proxy to the City of London, which it could be. I just don't see the empirical information that says that that's true. All I see is that a lot of the indicators lead back to Mossad and Mossad operatives that go all the way back to the early 70s when Epstein was given the reins. And then it also links back to the Rothschilds because Les Wexner said in his deposition that he was told by the Rothschilds to seek Jeffrey Epstein as his investment coordinator. I think that was the gist of it. Right? Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say the thing that gets me about the whole City of London thing is I feel like it's almost like a euphemism for the Zionist globalists, the Mossad. And that's where I disagree with EM kind of, is that I'm like, everything I've heard on the City of London narrative, it takes too many assumptions. There's too many wickets that have to be jumped to make that actually the case. And for me, all the assumptions, every assumption you have to make, that's each one is highly unlikely, jumping through all these wickets, that just doing statistical math, it becomes increasingly unlikely that it's true. Where we see the World Economic Forum, we see the Bilderbergs, we see the Zionist globalist actions, Soros, Fauci, Gates. I mean, we see all these actors, and to me, it all fits the globalist, basically, is the simplest term.
I think they're all birds of the same feather. I don't know. I'll just put it this way. I say the same thing on Tommy's show. I'll believe it when I see it. Right now, I don't believe anything. And I don't know who they are. I don't know who the City of London would represent. I think there's a lot of very rich people and oligarchs across the planet now that are vying for control, and whatever that control looks like. But, the truth of the matter is, I don't know who they are. So, and I keep hearing this, there's a plan to dislodge the City of London and all the rest of that. I don't know if I buy that. I just don't know if I buy it, because I don't see that, right? If that was the case, and this was the example I used, so just bear with me for a second. This was the example I used on Tommy's podcast. General Holt said, well, how would you do it? I'm like, look, you have to bring the public along for whatever you're doing, right? If you're going to influence the public and get the public to do something, you have to bring them along with you. You have to give them a reason to wait long enough before they lose their minds because nothing's happening, right? And what we haven't seen them bring us, the public along and say, this is what's going on, right? We're arresting these people for these things. We keep hearing that they're going after the elections. We keep hearing that they're raiding all these election shops. We keep hearing that they're looking at chain of custody for all the ballots. We keep hearing that they're going after the machines, but nobody's been arrested yet. Just like the Somali fraud. No one's been arrested for that. You're telling me that you've identified this huge ring of Somalis that are running daycare centers and rolling money back to Somaliland, and you have no idea who the ringleaders are, and you haven't rolled them up? I mean, there's a certain point where you say, I don't buy this anymore. And I'm at the place where I don't buy any of it anyway. So I'm just waiting to see, because look, all of this is going to bear out by June. June is the cutoff date for the midterm election. If you don't have your shit together by June, you're not going to get it together. and you're not going to get control of the elections because all the blue states are going to print their fucking mail-in ballots. They're going to send their stuff out to all of their illegal aliens that are living in parking lots and living in trailer parks with no address. And it's going to be the same game as 22 and 20 and 24 all over again. So when you look at it from that perspective, you got to ask the question, okay, how much of this is real, right? I'm in the place now where I'm just like, I'll believe it when I see it because I haven't seen shit. Not one thing happened since, Trump took office, except for a lot of rhetoric. Every Monday he comes out, makes a big fat claim. By Tuesday, it's debunked. Every Friday, he makes another big fat claim. All weekend long, everybody's wrapped up around what he had to say. And then when he comes in and makes a new big fat claim. But nothing happens. Nothing's been happening except for us digging ourselves deeper and deeper into a war. And I'm not even sure how much of that is real. Like, how much air activity do we actually have over Iran? I mean, clearly we can't move the Navy into the Strait of Hormuz or into the Persian Gulf because that's clearly not going to happen. So the question really becomes, what are we really doing over there? What's really going on? And I can't even answer that question because there's no embedded reporters that are a part of that part of that situation. I think Troop's there. Hey, Troop. So
yeah, I agree.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Oh, it's Crazy Hair Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. So when this whole thing kicked off, the first thing I put out there was, did anybody ask China what they think? And the only grown-ups in the room are China and Russia. I mean, they control the region now. They have operational control. We have diplomatic influence. When Syria fell with the HTS, the Russians were the ones that were bringing the Alawite Christians into their operating bases, trying to protect them. And we're not consulting them as regional influencers in that conflict. And I understand there's the SVO, there's a war between Ukraine and Russia and all that. China is allegedly our enemy, but 99% of the stuff we buy from the shit ferry comes from China. So they really can't, are they frenemies? But, the big issue here is that Iran is a major chunk of the Chinese border. And if Iran goes down, they have to worry about who's gonna follow the Iranian leaders. It's a regional security issue for them. And the other issue that they have is if the Israelis go with the Samson option, or even the Iranians, and they start hurling nukes at each other, that is a clear and present danger to China, and they're definitely going to intervene. And like Colonel Murray said, the Russians and the Chinese have already been given these guys, the Iranians and the Syrian rebels. I can't remember their name. There's like 3 different groups that operate down there south of Saudi Arabia. But they've been giving them the drones. They've been giving them the ISR and intel. They've been helping them along, and they haven't they're not active participants in the war, like we're not active participants in the Ukrainian-Russian war. So what does that tell you? But if this spins out of control, the Chinese are going to start pulling on levers, and they have a long fulcrum. They have a little bit of effort that the Chinese apply is going to have a lot of impact on the United States. So really the only cool thing that I heard this week is the Spanish, España, and was it the French or the Germans or somebody said that we weren't allowed to use their air bases to support this effort against the Iranians. And so Trump said, well, fuck you then. You can get your oil from somewhere else. You want it, you can go fight for it. You can go get it yourself. So some of the good things that I'm seeing, and I'm trying to be balanced, right? I'm trying to be like a emotionally indifferent threat analyst when I look at this stuff. And one of the things that we're seeing is a lot of cracks in NATO. And NATO was it Article 5 or whatever it is, if somebody attacks your buddy, then you have to join in. Well, we kind of picked this fight on our own. The Israelis are not NATO members. They're special privileged non-NATO members. So nobody's really obligated to help the United States, but it is definitely showing how these foreign powers that are allegedly our allies are going to respond if there is a true conflict. So Trump said, well, you know what? fuck you guys. You can stick up for yourself then. And what I'm seeing from that is I'm already seeing some big cracks in the concrete. And I think this whole NATO thing is crumbling. The Russians wanted to join NATO. They literally wanted to become part of NATO.
Under Clinton, yeah. Under Clinton.
And they, and the best way it's explained to me is by a member of the Wagner group that I talked to, or a former member of it. He said they didn't want us to have a seat at the table because they wanted us to be the main course for dinner. Because without Russia being a bad guy, there is no purpose for NATO. So why would they allow us to be in there? Because think about how much money and how much control and how much influence and how much political capital NATO has as an organization. And
it's the defense industrial complex, right? It's it's the rich guys at the table going, wait, we can't make friends with the boogeyman. We need a boogeyman. It's always
exactly.
A boogeyman.
I gotta go to dinner in a second.
Yeah, no worries.
I wanted to say one thing. I just saw one comment, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Tiff Thwart or whatever, he said 5 weeks, and there will be more energy lockdowns for the EU. And one thing I was talking with my buddy from pilot training who lives in Europe today is the energy shortages are going to hit Europe here pretty soon in the next week or two. And it's hitting Asia first and then going to hit us because all the ships that have sailed out of the Persian Gulf before the war started, they're almost all about to hit their destinations. So there's going to, in a short time, there's not going to be any more follow-on shipments coming. And, what Jan has been saying about the whole, we're moving towards depopulation and famines. If you just take his thing and say, they just got to get this crisis, this conflict to go long enough where it starts to interrupt all the supply chains and it starts to hit. Because once it starts to hit, all the ramifications start to go parabolic. And it's like what Bracken has said before, that stuff gets out of control. And I feel like my parting words
that's exactly what it is.
That's exactly what they're just delaying until they get to that point of crisis with the whole economy worldwide, and then they're off to the races with their lockdowns and everything like that. But I got to go.
All right, bud. Thanks for jumping on. Appreciate it.
Sorry I couldn't stay longer. See ya.
Peace.
No worries.
I'll come back if I can.
Okay.
Colonel Johnson and I had a brief conversation this morning about investments and finances and stuff. So I'm looking at options. I'm like most people, I think. I put my money in the 401k and I let it ride, and it's riding downhill right now.
Yeah. So his point's valid, right? No good crisis goes to waste. And I had a pretty long conversation with Mike Ferris the other day about this, and we both agree that this is going to be a lockdown here, but they're not going to call it a lockdown. They're just going to call it shortages, but they're going to recommend that people stay home and work from home and don't commute unless you have to. And at some point they'll institute, but we have to see a couple other refineries get blown up in the process of that, right? So the refinery that blew up in Texas, I guess it's going to take 3 to 5 years to rebuild it. Mm-hmm. So, that means that, 450 million barrels of oil, a year are processed through there. So that means about, 15 to 20% of our fuel is coming from Houston. So, okay.
And California is still full steam ahead and shutting down their refineries. And the ones they haven't, those oil companies are trying to evacuate.
So, yeah, and you can't move that infrastructure quick, right? The oil industry, that stuff's been around forever. So all of those things are happening all at once. I think what's really interesting in this whole narrative is, and by the way, I have to read this because this fits right into what we were talking about. We started the show. We started talking about aliens, troops, so just trust me. So this was Shadow Vezra just posted this like an hour ago. UFO expert Stephen Greer warns that rogue actors inside the government are now on the verge of staging a fake alien invasion across the entire planet. He says the operation would be so advanced it could easily deceive most of the world, including top government officials. The goal, he claims, is to manufacture fear to justify a one-world government and unlimited power and zero accountability. The ability to hoax an attack on our planet is real.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So I think when you couple that with the Matt Getz stuff and stuff, they're going to definitely wag the dog. I don't know how that's going to show up or if it's even real. There's so much distraction right now. It's hard to know what's real. But so I watch all the narratives every week, right? I'm not watching what Trump does. I'm not watching what Trump says. I don't care, right? I'm watching all these narratives show up in social media and how they're pushed across all social media week to week, right? Because it's the long-term narratives that I care about. I don't care about the day-to-day stuff, right? I keep telling everybody, don't get wrapped up in the day-to-day narratives. It's just noise. Watch the long-term narrative. What are they building on? What's the stuff they're dropping fresh BS for every single week? Because that's how you do influencing, right? So 2 years ago, Tucker Carlson's on Joe Rogan, says that they're interdimensional beings and says that they're demons. And then you fast forward, and every week since then, there's been some kind of a drop on some kind of social media that keeps that in the spotlight, right? And now they're building on it. Every single week, there's some new bullshit that's dropped into the public consciousness. This week, Matt Getz. Last week, it was Tucker Carlson again. So I'm telling you, this stuff is going somewhere. I don't know where. But
Well, I'm trying to wonder, like, if I'm an intelligent life form and I'm cruising through the galaxy and then I pass by Earth, am I gonna read the New York Times and then figure out who the leaders are and then look at how dysfunctional they are? I mean, assumingly, my race is an intelligent super race of aliens, right? And then I'm going to look at what's going on in this balkanized planet of nations, and I'm going to choose to reach out to the federal government and announce my presence, and then negotiate with them when I'm going to reveal myself. And I have no stated intentions. We're going to steal your water, we're going to take your women, we're going to blow up your planet. It's just so far beyond any. I mean, you couldn't even fit that narrative into a sci-fi book, and there's no suspension of disbelief there.
They did fit it into sci-fi. They put it into the X-Files. It's actually in the X-Files. So, if you haven't watched the reruns of the X-Files, you should go do it. I actually started last night, and I'd forgotten how much cool shit was in there.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I think it's more likely that aliens would be on the path forward as a guest than to be dealing with these Muppets that are in government. I think it would be a better avenue for them.
Well, if you're an alien race and you're listening to this right now, this is an open invitation for you to make contact with us and come on our show. We would gladly ask you questions like, is time travel real? Is it just like Hot Tub Time Machine? Is it just like Back to the Future? If I only go 88 miles an hour with a flux capacitor, can I travel through time? And
are aliens monogamous?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you? Yeah. There's so many different questions we could ask them. So yeah, if you're an alien race and you'd like to come on the show, please reach out to me. Telepathically, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Me out. Wait till I'm just asleep and then wake me up with a ship hovering over and then do the Cujo Vulcan mind melt.
It'll be like the book of Ezekiel. You'll have like a vision of a multi-faced alien, communicating.
I will share with you that I've had some pretty vivid dreams about aliens, and yeah.
You didn't wake up with a sore butt hole, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't wake up in Cleveland with a wiped memory and a sore ass. No, but yeah, I've had some pretty interesting dreams about it. I think what's interesting. All right, ethereal. I'll share one of them. So it's a couple of years ago now. It was at least a 4-hour dream because I could remember every part of it. And I was taken aboard a mothership, as they say. And I was literally arguing with an alien race about let me use the mothership so I could come down here and fix our all of our governments and fix all of our population and clean up the environment. And it was a 4-hour conversation about why they couldn't intervene. Well, I'm like, if you give me the ship and you let me go do this and I push the buttons, technically you're not interfering. You're just loaning me the ship, right? So I'm like, what's the harm in that? Right? We could go down, we do disclosure, We wake everybody up. We zap a few people with the laser, and we clean up the entire population of pedophiles. We go after all the drug kingpins. We do, in 24 hours, we could have this place cleaned up. We shoot down every single one of these guys doing the chemtrails. Problem solved, right? And then it was a 2-hour conversation around, they're not allowed to intervene in our development no matter what. And I'm like, well, you're not intervening if you give me the ship. Just give me the ship. I'll go intervene. In fact, I'll intervene like nobody's business. So anyway, the point is that I think everybody's had one of those kind of dreams, by the way. But I just think it's interesting that we're seeing this right now. I can't get to the why on this. I just can't. I think it's entertaining as hell. I think there's a mountain of material here. So, and I want to know who they got for subjects to go mate with these aliens. Like, really? I mean, did they go to Walmart? Did they go to a trailer park? Did they go to a hospital? Did they go to an insane asylum? Did they pluck people out of a caravan somewhere? I mean, where'd they get the people for that? That's what I want to know.
Alienfans.com, like OnlyFans, but alien fans. I can see it. It could work. Call that guy that's in charge of Pornhub. Tell him to spin up a new domain.
Yeah.
So, BBW aliens. Sure. It's that so there was one of the things that we can kind of see in this is that all wars are bankers' wars, and anytime there's any type of disruption to the supply chain, and everybody's talked about, well, there's helium disruption, there's a sulfuric acid disruption, there's plastic pellets, everything that comes from petroleum, which is everything. There's a disruption. And the market analysts, I'm sure, are going, okay, well, if you need this base component to make this product and it goes into this thing, maybe I'm going to short that, and maybe I'm going to invest in this. And they don't really care who's killing who or what the situation is. They just care about yeah. And there's some lessons to be learned there for anybody who's, I don't want to say day trading like Colonel Johnson was saying. I'm not a day trader, but I invest in stocks. So there's definitely some clues there. And the same thing, I have this kind of Paris stock thing. I call it the Coleman Index, and that, like Coleman stoves and lanterns and stuff like that. And that is anytime there's a natural disaster or some kind of big thing, you invest in Lowe's and Home Depot and Weyerhaeuser, the people that make the plywood and the 2x4s, and all these other material goods that are designed to go and build stuff after the insurance assessors determine what they're going to rebuild. And then you can get screwed on that too. For example, Maui or Lahaina, you think, oh, this is going to be good. I'm going to invest in these companies. They're going to directly support the rebuilding efforts. And then there's been some other type of countermanding influence that makes what you would have expected to happen not happen. And it's all controlled by the puppetry, the puppet masters. But I just went on a rant on my channel at these, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things about the same thing you say, Steve. Don't invest yourself in things that you can't directly control or at least influence. And we can doom porn on the safe side of the keyboard and be mad and pound our fists on the table and all this other stuff, and it annoys me greatly. Because you still live in an apartment, a trailer home, a house with your mom in a basement, wherever you are, and you still every morning when you wake up have a choice point to either do something to inoculate yourself from the perceived dooms that are on their way, or you just spend more time on the internet and do nothing, and then you're mad when it happens. So focus on getting your shit squared away, that 80% effectiveness 100% of the time. And the whole moral of that story is you should spend about 80% of your time planning for things. And then the 20% of things that you like, I didn't see that coming, right? That wasn't on my bingo card. You've got all that other stuff squared away so you can focus 100% of your creative ability on solving that 20% unknown problem when it presents itself. You can stay focused, you can stay clear, you stay out of the panic space, and you can get through it. But you can't do that if you're just, buying dehydrated Bitcoin and basement beans from the shit ferry and hoarding and not leaving your home and not talking to your neighbors and not really having a plan. It's frustrating to me. And I called out the military guys too. I think you might have seen that, Steve. I'm like, you fucking guys think, oh, you got to buy your kit and your rifle and shit. We're going to do patrols. Motherfucker, you have no, if I took any of these guys and I put them 50 miles away from where they live with nothing but their clothes, I don't think very many of them would figure out how to get home, having to navigate through all the barrio zip codes between where they get dropped off and where they're at. And that's a reality for a great deal of people. Is they have no training, they have no skills, they have no black belt in any kind of thing, they have no rifle, nothing, and they're living in the middle of Shitville, and they're weak and they're scared and they have no plan, and somehow they manage to continue to survive. And those are the people that I truly admire, because that is the tenacity of human will. That is the perpetuation of our genetic race as mankind, is people that are put in these adverse situations with zero knowledge of the situation that they're in, the ice age, whatever, and they fight through it and they continue through it. And we forgot that we have that innate ability, that pragmatism, to look at situations that are directly affecting us and then figure out some type of solution to it. And the interesting thing is, we talk a lot about veterans and veteran suicide and elderly suicide and things like that. When things are going good for a person and all their other needs are met, they made their rent, they have food to eat, everything's fine. But then they start thinking about their wife that left them, or they lost a child, or their military service, some tragic thing that I'm not saying is these are real, horrible, terrible things. But when they're only focused on the past and they're not focused on what they're doing right now, they're not in service to others, or they're not trying to better themselves, they're not focused on a cause that's greater than themselves, they're not in the moment, then they get suicidal. Cavemen weren't suicidal. Cavemen were worried about getting eaten by a fucking saber-toothed tiger. They didn't have time to think about killing themselves. They had the only amount of time they had was to figure out how to drag a new woman into the cave and, get some meat for dinner. So focus on things that you can influence and control. I'm not saying go to an external locus of control and go, oh, God will take care of everything else. I don't have to read the news. I don't have to be worrying about anything else that's going on around me. Just live in a blissful cloud, blissfully unaware. But you have the capability, you have the intellectual capability to understand what is directly affecting you right now and make small, little, tiny, incremental changes to maybe get a little bit more water, maybe buy a couple of extra canned goods, maybe talk to your neighbor, maybe walk the neighborhood that you're in, maybe, get involved in the political parties, which I can tell you is an albatross that I carry around, and I question it constantly. But if we are not showing up to vote, I guarantee you all those other fuckers are going to vote, and then we're going to be mad because, oh, well, the elections are rigged anyway. Look, somebody else is in charge, but you never fucking showed up to the fight. So I'm not saying that all of these things are going to be fruitful.
I'll disagree with you on that. It's not going to, voting harder is not going to, if they don't do something to fix the voting system, it's a moot point.
I agree. So you start, making calls and stuff like that. You do what you can do. But what I'm saying is, don't abandon the ship. Don't just give up. Don't just walk away. Oh, well, it's, go to the fatalist mode. I'm going to practice, what is it, nihilism or whatever. I'm going to cuck myself out and just take myself out of the fight.
We can agree to disagree on that, because if I look at who's in office and who's running for office, it's always the same game, right? It's the worst of the worst. You get to choose from really bad or extremely bad, and those are your choices. So you get the same foreign policy, domestic policy, financial policy, military policy. It's always the same thing, right? But we have two choices: really bad or completely bad. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But and then if we don't show up to the game,
we get really bad, and then what?
We're going to get really bad anyway, is my point, right? So
I think they trade off. I do. I think that it's a WWF or whatever thing, where they fight in the ring and then they go in the back room and they decide who's going to win the next fight. But you have to stay engaged. But we're at the point now where, now that we've eliminated the entire royal family of the Iranian government, there's no reason for them not to start attacking us and our elected leaders and officials, right? We're in a very dangerous time right now, an extremely dangerous time.
That's very true, and that's why I let you go on about being prepared, right? So, I think with all this stuff, with all the narratives that are out there right now, what it tells me is that something is on the horizon. I don't know what it is, but something's on the horizon. And if I go by what Sharita's been saying about the numerological and astrological charts, we're in prime space right around middle of the month for something big to happen too. So I think we're definitely in a highly dangerous time, which is why you should be 80% prepared 100% of the time. Um, I finally got to walk through the vehicles. I did like 3 takes on Sunday and finally posted one today. The point is that you should be looking at the real estate you have in your vehicle, looking at the real estate you have in your house, looking at the real estate you have in your property, whatever that looks like, and deciding what's the best place for, extra supplies and extra equipment. And now's the time to be going through your gear. I've been doing it all weekend. So um, I wouldn't wait at this point. I would be going through and doing the inventory of what you have, what you don't have, what you need, you know. And Troop's right. You can have all the kit you want, but I don't think that's the kind of fight we're going to be in. I think we may be in some kind of kinetic direct action fight, but I think that's a very small part of what we're going to go through here. I think we're going to see shortages for the first time since World War II. I think we're going to see people, and look at the job market right now, right? Oracle laid off 20,000 people today. Was it Monday? 20,000 people, 20 or 30,000 people. The tech sector is getting decimated right now. And look, I know a lot of people that are highly qualified guys, and I can tell you as a white male, it's incredibly hard to find work right now. Incredibly hard. And, I know guys that have sent out over 1,000 applications or resumes, and they've heard nothing back in 3 years. And these are top-notch guys. Like, these are very top-notch guys. So I did an article on Substack today about DEI is still in place. It really is still in place. I'm going through some of that right now in my personal life with some of the stuff going on. And I can tell you that we're going to see extended and sustained unemployment. And we're seeing it right now. We don't hear about it. Yeah, 30K. That's what I thought. So that's a significant number of people from Oracle. Significant number. So, I mean, that's in the billions range. So, anyway, Trip, I agree with that point. I think the elections are a toss-up at this point. We'll see how. Like I said, I'm waiting till June, then I'll make a decision in June. We'll see what happens by then. I keep hearing rumblings that there's executive orders coming, there's arrests coming, but we've been hearing that for over a year and nothing's happened. So,
they'll put out some zingers just before the midterms, and how that narrative's going to go is they'll probably have the big, media was informed on the secret FBI raid type of thing, and a bunch of guys get arrested and whatever, and then you vote the next day, and then nothing happens. Nobody's charged, nobody's convicted. So expect that pageantry. So I get it, but what where we're at right now is you as an individual American or anybody that's outside of the United States, you're responsible for yourself, your family, where you live, and then your community, and then you extend out from there. And the one of the things in my writings was, when I was on the street, I would avoid walking through neighborhoods because that's the most dangerous place that you can be. You always walk on the side of the street that has a low wall or a field or a place to run, and don't box yourself into a corner. You become the neighborhood, and when you're an active participant in your own neighborhood and your own defense and your own community, anybody that comes into that neighborhood, they automatically don't belong there. They're automatically at risk. They're automatically a threat to you, and you're a threat to them. You can't just lock yourself in, shut your blinds and think everything's going to be okay, duct tape your windows shut. You have to be out. You have to be in front. You have to walk your neighborhood. You have to ride the bike around your neighborhood if you're not healthy enough to walk that far. And you have to own your space. And again, a lot of us, I think most of the people on the round table were homeowners, were retired, semi-retired. Some of us have land, whatever. So I'm not that my message isn't to you if you have a green pasture in your backyard. My message is to the people that live in apartments, live in trailer parks, live in HOAs. Like Brandy and I moved from a little shitty HOA, and you have limited space, limited capability, limited options. You have to figure out you have to maximize what you have. And if you do just a little bit of research, you can see that you have quite a bit of capability. You're comparing your lifestyle to an American first world lifestyle of how big is your domicile, and how big is your backyard, and how many things do you have. You need to be looking outside of the United States to see what people do with significantly less than what you have, regardless of where you are on the stratification of wealth or whatever. You have an immense level of capabilities that you're not utilizing. And if you don't believe me, just do a little bit of research outside the country. And I mean, there's people that, from Japan that are in this vertical society or this horizontal society, in Canada too, Vancouver. They live in these little tiny apartments. Dude, if they had a 2-bedroom apartment that was on the second floor of an apartment building that was like 800 to 1,200 square feet, they would be like moving their whole family in, right? It'd be like the Taj Mahal for them. They would maximize that. So work within your capabilities, and don't try to figure out, like, don't regret that you can't work outside those capabilities and then you do nothing. You have to work within your capabilities, and then that's a stepping stone. It's like logging, when they cut a notch, they put the little plank, they stand on the plank, they cut another notch, they stand up a plank, and then they fell the tree. If you got to cut notches at the base of that tree, start cutting them. Don't just look at the tree and go, oh, it's a big tree, it's bigger than me, I can't do anything. I'll let acorns fall on my head. You just have to fight. You have to fight forward. Continue to do that. And that's a collective lever. Everybody, one guy puts a finger on a lever, nothing. 2 guys, 4 guys, 10 guys. Now all of a sudden you have a fulcrum, you have leverage. So just you can't check out of the fight. And that doesn't mean that you have to be a fighter with a gun. That just means that you, as an individual, with what your capabilities are at your level, you need to stay in the fight, or we're all fucked. Collectively, if you give up, collectively we're all fucked. So I'm relying on anybody listening to this to do your part. And I sincerely mean that.
I think that is a great place to stop. Action words. Great place to
More
stop.
thoughts from Jack Handy.
Yeah. No, I'm serious. I think it's a great place to stop. My advice to everybody is keep a wary eye on this UFO stuff. I'm seeing an Australian council member dropping a April Fool's joke about alien hybrids. So there's more to come on this, and it could be like I said, I think everything's BS until proven otherwise. So we'll see where this one goes. But boy, it's entertaining, isn't it? All right, I'll be back. Should be back tomorrow afternoon to do a show on Substack, probably 4:00. We'll see. We'll be back Thursday with the roundtable. We're going to go a little later this week. Until then, God bless everyone. One team, one fight.